Here we go. Hi, welcome to another video. This video is going to be sort of some bike training and some stuff that I do at home. Now, I've said it before and I will say it again, that I am not a registered dog trainer, so don't take this stuff as gospel. And if I do stuff, not incorrect, but if I do stuff that people say, oh, I wouldn't train people that way, that'll be why. So obviously I'm a certified dog handler, and although we do training like once, twice a month or once, twice a week, the ongoing stuff is down to the dog handler to keep him improving. So our SIA question of this video is down in the comments below. Can you write security spelt in the phonetic alphabet? Got like A is alpha, G would be golf. So spell security down in the comments below phonetically. Also, I had a request from someone that watched my video of becoming a security dog handler. They were over in the States, and they say that over there they do it differently to us. So he asked for some experiences, whether they was mine or other people's, or stories that I've heard of why people get their dogs to bite other people, or reasons that people have to engage their dogs with others. And although I don't have any experience myself other than sort of training, I do know of some stories, and because of these stories I adapt the way that I train, and I try and, if my own way, try and teach him the difference between threatening and non-threatening, when he's allowed to attack and when he's not. When I say attack, it's not attack, that's the wrong word, so it's defence. So I've said in videos before, the difference between an aggressive dog and a protective dog. An aggressive dog is unpredictable and will attack. A protective dog will protect its handler or itself if needed. And that's where I think it's not an attack dog, it's a protection dog, so it's more of a defence. He's defending the handler. So with getting your dog to bite or defend you from someone else, now I think in the UK it's typical of the UK. They don't put laws in of what you can and can't do in terms of when you feel threatened or you need to deploy the dog. There is no law saying when you can and can't do it. What they do say is that you need to be able to justify it. So basically what they want to say is that, look, you do it if you feel you need to, but we're not going to tell you when you can and can't, because if you do it wrong, then we want to be able to prosecute you. So you have to be pretty careful with the way that you go about doing it. Yeah, I might get attacked in a minute if I don't play with him. Yeah. And a lot of it comes down to what they call excessive force. So you can deploy your dog to protect you, but once the threat's gone, if you carry on with the dog, it then becomes sort of excessive force. A bit like if you had to defend yourself in a fight. Once the person's on the floor and they give up, if you keep going, then it becomes excessive force. So how do you justify being able to deploy your dog onto someone? Now, for me, it would mean that there is no other option. It was drilled into me quite a lot at training that using the dog is a last resort. It's when all other things have failed and there is no other way out and you have to defend yourself. So there's a good story I'll get told at training, and it was about a dog handler that was working. And I've actually spoken to the dog handler about it just to get his side of the story as well. And the long and short of it is that he was working on a building site, and around the building site there was some houses, and they wasn't happy that these new houses were going to be put in. And anyway, he was working and he was doing his patrol, and he was doing one on his own without the dog. So he's just walking around, and the houses that didn't appreciate them being there, he walked past one, and there was a party going on. Now, one of the guys that had had too much to drink shouted something at the dog handler, and the dog handler basically just waved him off. And after the dog handler waved the guy away and said, "Look, just leave me alone, I'm just doing my job," he started walking back towards his van. Now, after he'd done that, the guy from the party come through and he kicked the gate open. Now, obviously, kicking the gate open is an aggressive move towards someone. If I kicked your front door in, it would be an aggressive move on my part towards yourself, and then you would then have to make the decision on what you've done from there. So once the gate got kicked open, the dog handler went to the back of his van and got the dog. Now, he didn't have time to put the lead on the dog, so he only had it by the collar, and he turned round, and whilst he was trying to get the collar on, the lead on, the guy had got to within, let's say, 5 yards of the dog handler. So the dog handler then had a decision to make. This guy is being aggressive and walking towards him. He's only got the dog on by the collar, and the dog handler's only thought was try and get rid of the guy, get the dog on the lead, then we'll be all safe. The guy didn't back down, so the dog handler ended up punching the guy, putting him on his back. And this was after numerous times of saying stand back, because with this also you need to be animated as well. So the guy's on the floor and he's standing there with the dog. The guy then gets up and comes at him again, and as he comes at him again, the dog bites the guy on the arm. It was a quick bite and then he let go. Now he then turned around and said, "Well, your dog's bit me," and without, I don't know exactly what he said, but it was more of a, "Well, duh, I told you. That's why I was telling you to stand back." And anyway, they said, "Well, I'm calling the police." The dog handler said, "That's fine, I need to call the police anyway because the dog's had to bite someone." And the police turned up. Now, obviously the dog handler knew this, and the police turned up and said, "Right, what happened?" Now, there was 50 people saying that he had gone to the back of the van, opened up the door and just let the dog loose, and the dog ran straight up to the guy, bit him, and then obviously he got him off. The police said, "What's your side of the story?" So the dog handler told his side. Now, there was a CCTV camera right above his head, and CCTV is your saviour as a dog handler, because when there is something like that, where there's 50 people saying that you've done something, and you're saying something different, you need something to back you up. And the CCTV was there, so the police viewed it. Now, this is also where you can get unstuck as well. So 2 policemen are watching it, and they've seen exactly the same video. They can see him standing, saying stand back, stand back. They see him punch the guy and put him on the floor. Then they also see the dog bite. One police officer says, "Well, he couldn't have done anything else. I mean, he's put the guy on the floor and he's still got up and come at him." The other policeman turned around and said, "Yeah, but his dog's bit him. His dog's not allowed to bite him." And anyway, it ended up going back to the police station, and basically the sergeant or whoever it is turned around and threw it straight out because of the CCTV footage. Without that CCTV footage, he would have had 50 people saying he just let the door open and let the dog out, which is why I always wear a body cam. Whatever shift I do, I have a body cam. It may not be turned on until I'm alerted to something, but it is always, I always have it within an arm's, well, that of me. So that is one reason that I've heard of someone having to deploy their dog. Now, obviously, he had to let the guy get within an arm's length of him and the dog to be able to punch him. So, although his dog's going mad, he obviously had to have control of him and that. So, one way in which I've tried to do my training with the dog is that he's not told to hold unless he's told to. Heel. Hold. So, in theory, he only holds when he's told to, and then out. Out! So in theory, although he'll jump up, he never really grabs it. He'll stand there and bark. Because I'm looking at him square in the eyes, it's kind of, if you was at a bar and you were staring someone square in the eyes, they'll think, what's this guy on about? So, although I'm staring at him, he will jump up a few times. He did just then, something I'm working on. He won't grab it unless I tell him to hold. If I tell him to hold, then he latches on. So this is also an issue I've had with my training, because I do a lot of this one-on-one with him, is that he obviously, to do this, he jumps up at me. Oi. He obviously jumps up at me, so he, for the time being, he feels it's okay to jump at me. And because we're training and doing this stuff and I want to bring him on, I kind of just suffer it at the moment. And then once I get past this bit, then I'll start teaching him not to jump. Oh. So when are you going to normally need this? Most times you'll need it on a patrol. So you'll be out doing a patrol and you find someone breaking into a building or whatever it is, or trying to break into a diesel tanker, and you will then have to approach that guy. That guy's not going to be, A, probably not going to want to be caught, and B, thinking, well, if I get you out of the way, then I can carry on doing what I'm doing. So I've put in a clip here of training, which is kind of like a mock patrol, and then at the end we find the guy and he approaches us, and then at the end he gets his tug toy. So we don't always do bites at the end of stuff, we try and do play, so that they learn the patrol side, and then obviously the eye contact, and then they get the tug toy, a bit of play, and then he gets released.
Ski handler! Dog finds you, stand still, won't be harmed. Ski dog handler, last chance, I'll send the dog. Send in the dog. Fine. 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 Stand still. Okay, watch. Watch. Stand still. Do not approach the dog. Stand still. Stand still. Do not approach the dog. Watch him, Coop. Watch him. Stand still. Stand still. Stand still. Do not approach the dog. Stand still. Stand still. Watch him, Coop. Watch him. Hold. 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 Stop fighting with the dog. Hold. Stop fighting with the dog. Stop fighting. Hold. Hold.
Ready, 1, 2, 3. Go.
Good boy. Yes. Yes. We got. Yes. Hey. Good lad. Good boy. That's good. Well done.
So as you can see, we was just walking through doing our patrol there, and the dog sniffed out someone. There are challenges that we shout just to give someone opportunities to show themselves. And like I said with this, the last thing you want to do, although you train for it, I think it's a little bit like, I don't know, let's say police, the armed police response. They train for it, but if you said to them, would you be happy if you never had to use it? They'd say yeah, because that means everything's gone well, no one's going to get in trouble for anything. So although you train for this, you hope you never have to use it, but you have to have it. So we're sniffing through, found the guy, told him not to approach us, stand back, don't approach the dog, kept coming, and then when he produced the toy, got a tug, and then plays with him, let's go, and then that's him done. That's what he had to do. So the biting process to get to where we are now, it's taken around sort of 6 months. I've said in other videos, it took me about 6 months to get him up to a standard where he will latch onto a sleeve. Now that started with little bite pads, using little bite pads, and then they gave me one to take home. So those little bite pads, little tugs, a bit like what we do with this. So hold. So just bite, and then you just play some tug. So little bite pads where you can play a bit of tug. Then that actually slipped up onto my arm. So then what I would do then is I would have it on my arm, and because he was used to biting that, then he'd start latching onto that. And then once obviously he starts getting used to this part of the arm, then the sleeve, once that goes onto there, then that then becomes the same thing. And once you get used to the sleeve, and that starts the same process, so you have it and you play a little bit of tug with them, and then you slip it up your arm, and then all of a sudden they're latching on and they're tagging. So another important part of this is obviously being able to get them to latch on, but also being able to get them to let go. So I think by police standards, if their police dogs don't let go within 25 seconds, they aren't fit for purpose. And what happens to them, I don't know, it depends how aggressive they are. But I think they have 25 seconds in order to let go. Because once, like I say, if you decide that, okay, enough's enough, if you can't get your dog off, then it becomes excessive force. So it's lots of practice, but what you're hoping for is it looks something like, hold, 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 ouch, hold, ouch, hold. So that's kind of roughly where we've got to. So he lets go pretty soon. If you've seen my last video, the speak on command, when he's on the lead, it's not quite as quick because he's in sort of like the biting mode, but I can get him off reasonably quick without using excessive force. And you'll see a lot of videos with people in bite suits, dogs jumping over cars and things like that. You don't need that in the security dog industry. Obviously that's elite and they're using them dogs for far bigger things, but just for what we're doing, security dog handling, you don't need that sort of stuff. You don't need to have a dog that's that aggressive, can do that many things. Yeah, okay, it looks cool, things like that, but when you actually see dogs jumping up on cars or jumping through windows or jumping big high walls, it's actually not very good for the dog. I mean, people know that German Shepherds have bad legs and things like that, and that can only affect them in a negative way. So a bite sleeve, it's basically just a big cushion on your arm, and it works exactly the same way as I was doing with that. So I said, hold! So it works exactly the same way, hold, latches on, and then it's a game of tug basically. Now it takes quite a lot, it took me quite a while to get him to bite onto that, because things like that he can get his mouth round. Once he gets onto something like a sleeve where it's a lot bigger and he can't get his mouth around it, it's quite hard. So again, it was just games of hold, just games of little bits of tug, hold. I mean, he's not quite sure what because I haven't got it on properly. Oh, there you go. So it's just little games like this where you just get them to hold. Come on in, hold it. And then we kind of worked it out from there. Again, it's just little ones of that, start sliding it up the arm until it's on, and then he latches on. And one thing I work, this is a little bit of obedience work as well. Basically what I'm going to get him to do now is that when I pat it, and I've become aggressive, he'll come and run at me. Good. 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 And when you're seeing some of my videos, it's like I pat his sides. Sometimes I might even put my hand over his eyes. That's just teaching the dog that they can be touched. Now obviously not everyone that gets attacked by the dog when the dog bites on is just going to sit there. They obviously are going to try and fight the dog off, and it's kind of just teaching the dog that it can be touched whilst this is happening, and that's okay, and that he doesn't let go, because the last thing you want to do is for the dog to let go and then get in harm, because obviously the person or the trespasser's now got use of both his hands. If he's got a weapon in it, he's now got that hand free. So there's also an emergency stop. Now, I've heard of some stories where the dog has somehow got loose and it's running straight at someone, and obviously you can get done for GBH. Worst case, you can end up in prison for 14 years if your dog kills someone. But obviously if the dog gets loose somehow and it's running straight at a civilian who has done nothing wrong, it's just Doris walking back home with her groceries, you need to be able to stop the dog from doing anything. So I'll give that one a go. The card is leave it. He should run at me, and when I say leave it, he should just run past me. Leave it! Good boy, good boy. That's a really good boy. That was good. That was pretty good. We'll just try it for a second time to make sure it wasn't a fluke. Down. 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 Good. Good. Leave it! Good boy. So that's another important thing. Now, an emergency stop, I can get him to do it when he's running at someone. If I threw his ball, I don't know, let's do this. I'll try it with his ball. Help. Help. Down. Back. Help. So I'll try the same thing with his ball. Leave it! Leave it! Not a chance. But I can do it with people, which is more important than anything else. So there are a couple of other stories I've heard about people that have had to put their dogs on. There was one where they was asked to keep a stairwell clear, where there was some people doing drugs, and there was one of the guys was doing it, and there was people taking drugs in the stairwell, and they come aggressive and threatened him with needles. To the point where he had to get his dog to defend him. There's been times where he's been in car parks. He was working in a car park, and there was some kids throwing stones at expensive cars. I think it was a train station car park that's the train straight into London. There was kids throwing stones at expensive cars, and it was their job to clear the kids off and make sure if anything happened that it was reported to the police. And one of the kids started throwing stones at him and the dog. One of the stones hit the dog. He then took off on his bike up an alley by the side of the car park, to which he didn't chase him. He just went that way just to get a direction of travel for the police. And then the kid turned around on his bike and rid straight at him and the dog. And the dog didn't bite him, but as the kid went past, he nipped his ankle. The police were called, and it turned out that the police officer was the kid's dad, and the kid got a firm hand from, I think from the policeman that was his dad, for throwing stones at cars and causing a nuisance and throwing stones at dogs. So there are a few stories of why people have had to put their dogs to work or to do the biting stuff. Like I say, it's an absolute last resort. If you can do it any other way, a bit like the dog handler that punched the guy to the floor. He gave him all opportunities not to get bitten. It was the other guy's decision to keep going whilst the dog was there, and then he got bitten for that. And it's things like, I know the guy that I just said about with the bike, and now when that dog sees bikes or there's bikes around him, he completely loses it. So But you have to remember that these aren't robots. They have feelings the same way as us. If I went rollerblading and I broke my ankle rollerblading, I'd never want to rollerblade again. So because that dog associates bikes with obviously getting stones thrown at him, he now reacts on that. So that's another thing that you have to learn with this, is that what will your dog react to, and it's different things through the dog's working life, the same way we do, different things that the dogs learn from, and they'll react differently. The whole idea of this is to stay safe. So for me, I want to do it as safely as I can. I want to have him under as much control as I can, so that I'll be able to get him to hold, out, hold. So I want to know that I can get him to bite and I can get him to let go. And like I say, everything to do this with safety, but it's also to do with protection. So never get confused between an aggressive dog that's a pet where they'll just attack anyone, to a protection dog that is trained and controlled, where you can get him to bite and let go. I hope you like this video. A couple of them stories are just ones that I've heard. I've never actually had to deploy my dog myself, and hopefully I never will, but the training's there if I need it to. So the answers to the SIA question was spell security phonetic, with the phonetic alphabet. So S Sierra, E Echo, C Charlie, U Uniform, R Romeo, I India, T Tango, Y Yankee. The phonetic alphabet's very key with security work. Obviously it's clear, and when you speak to people like police, that's what they work in as well. I hope for the person that asked for this video, I hope that gives you some idea, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and we'll see you down here for the next one, where we'll do something a little less bitey but just as important. Just watching. See you soon. Bye. We got this. What you got there?